So how do you think India and Indian economy is looking at the auto space?
So from a closed economy to government understanding this and partnering equally with Suzuki of Japan, they brought Maruti Suzuki in the country, and that is what I think started changing the face of automobile in the country.
Now recently, Bajaj Finance came out with their numbers, quarterly numbers. Then I think the MD, he spoke about the fact that how they are harnessing the power of AI.
I was so fascinated about AI and the kind of things it can do. I first need to understand what AI can do for myself.
Mercedes would be available at this price, that price.
Because India is a very competitive market. For example, a G-Wagon in India which costs around say 4.5 crore. If by this math it would be coming in the Indian market, it would be costing not less than 6.5 crore rupees. So therefore, the first funda of math gets failed here. And also the Marwadi family se hote hai, so I have grown by hearing the word called shares. Share for us was the lion king of the jungle. Zero to aaj tak kabhi hua nahi Indian market mein. And once the government showed a surety, the team was coming in, which meant ki ab yahan se the journey is only north. Decisions are never easy, you know. Humans are always comfortable remaining in the same way. Change is always discomforting. So you have to take that first step to move forward.
So when I meet my old students, most of them tend to say that, sir, I was your first student. And I then smile because I feel that they don't know how deep does it go. Also, some people feel that I started by teaching the CA program and then I shifted more towards CFA. Now that's also wrong. I started by teaching a program called the Indian CFA. It was MS Finance from ICFI Hyderabad. And that program was mind-boggling, believe me. मतलब आज के दिन जो CFA program है, International CFA, if I compare that to the MS Finance program, I would say MS Finance program was superior. It was so nice, it was so developed, it touched every part and it was Indianized. It had all the foreign elements, but it had the Indian touch. Now those days, when from 1998 to 2008, I was actively teaching MS Finance. I was so privileged to come across so many students who, if you look at them from outside, you would feel that, yaar, ye to average student hai. Okay, say he is from a Bhawanipur college in Calcutta. But these people have real substance. Okay, the type of common sense, intelligence running in their veins is unparalleled. Now, one such personality, I would say, as a part of our alumni, is Saharsh Damani. And I'm so happy to now sit and record a podcast for all of you. There is huge learning that you would have as a result of the session. And believe me, we can be very, very informal because we had such informal days in the past, early 2000, that we would not be able to prevent ourselves from becoming informal. Of course, there would be a lot of traits in his personality. He has experienced in the strategy domain, in the present automobile domain, in connect with the current government, as in how does policy making take place, okay, the current Indian EU deal, okay, the impact on the automobile industry in general, and plus how he emerged as a student from Bhawanipur College in Calcutta to doing the MS Finance program and to shaping his career, what were the challenges, what are the different roles he took, and ultimately, presently, whatever he's doing, if he found his calling over there, in that case, how does it all bring about? What lessons does he have for similar people? Because people are just fixated on, मेरे को investment banker बनना है, मेरे को McKinsey में जाना है, मेरे को, you know, portfolio manager बनना है. I think you cannot be fixated. You have to allow your personality to evolve. You never know that you have much better in store as compared to what you are fixated upon. So, welcome to Saharsh Damani.
Thank you so much, sir. It's such a pleasure to be with you after more than a decade. I still remember the kind of sessions or the CFA classes we used to be part of. You know, you were teaching all the subjects and all the colleagues who used to come. It was never felt as if we were into a serious domain of studies. It was studies with fun, which made the studies much more entertaining, much more engraving in the mind. And I think that's how the interest in finance and the interest in doing something good for yourself imbibed in me. And that was the beginning of my Avatar version 2 at that point of time. Uh, because, as I was saying, telling you offline also, the first trimester, which is CFA Foundation Alpha, I had flunked. No,
And I was surprised because I could not remember that.
so the thing was, after doing my 12th, I was into that celebration mode that now we are into college. अब कॉलेज में आ गए, फर्स्ट ईयर है, पढ़ता कौन है कॉलेज में? And ठीक है, my cousin told me, you enroll yourself for the CFA. So I said, okay, I'm outside, you do the enrolling part on my behalf and let me know what needs to be done. So he had set the track, but then to run your vehicle on that track had to be done by myself, है ना? वो कोई और आके नहीं चलाएगा. So first 3 months जब हुआ, एग्ज़ाम हुआ, obviously जब पढ़े नहीं थे तो नंबर कैसे आएंगे? So result was out, and that actually rang the alarm bell. Boss, you need to be serious, because coming from a Marwadi family, age is a big number, you know. The faster you do things at a lesser age, the better you are in terms of your further journey into your career and into your life. So again took a second attempt, did all the hard work, and that passion or that kick had actually, you know, come in. Results came, and got the gold medal. I still remember 2 subjects, economics and accounts. 95, 94, 81, 88 were my marks. And these numbers I will never able to, you know, forget. So that was my journey into finance. That was my journey into doing something really serious, you know, to build a career and then to do good not only for myself but also for my family. So that was the entire beginning, you know, which with you I could generate and I could ignite. So that's how it started.
I know सबके life में there are certain moments, you know. तो what you have said, that alpha flunk होने के बाद alpha में gold medal लाना, ठीक है, that was superb, and I didn't remember that. I do remember कि जब अपने आगे के groups में थे, delta, epsilon and all that, there also you were scoring phenomenal and people were surprised, okay, because Xavier's वाले बहुत सारे बंदे थे and they used to perhaps sometimes underestimate, okay, the Baggu guys. So they got a good lesson.
Yeah, you can call it a good lesson, but it was all in the fun mode. But fun अपने तरफ था and पढ़ाई अपने तरफ थी. In fact, I remember the delta marks which I had was at that point of time all-time highest. So that journey continued, and CFA actually became a passion for me, you know. That actually drove me from morning till night. Numbers gave me that kick, and the love for the pink paper started during that era. To scroll the scripts, the prices, what is the beta of that stock, how is it working in the real sense versus what we are studying in our curriculum. You know, all those things I could start correlating. And also जब मारवाड़ी
and the
family,
case study stuff that we used to have.
हाँ,
Yeah.
and also जब मारवाड़ी फैमिली से होते हैं, so I have grown by hearing the word called shares. जब छोटा था तो लगता था कि मतलब आज 100 शेयर बेच दिया, 10,000 शेयर खरीद लिया. शेयर फॉर अस वाज द लायन किंग ऑफ द जंगल. तब नहीं पता था शेयर क्या होता है. बट देन व्हाट यू कीप ऑन हियरिंग फ्रॉम योर childhood days, and then you start seeing it in black and white or on the screen. तब उतना ऑनलाइन ट्रेडिंग का ज़माना नहीं था. इट वाज ऑल फ्लोर ट्रेडिंग. ऑनलाइन ट्रेडिंग वाज जस्ट बिगिनिंग. So all that thing imbibed in me gave me that extra excitement. वो हम ऑटोमोबाइल में बोलते हैं एड्रेनलिन रश, दैट किक्ड इन, एंड दैट इज हाउ द जर्नी स्टार्टेड. एंड I didn't only do my CFA, but I did my MBA also. And the best part of doing MBA was finance. तो मतलब नींद में भी एग्जाम क्लियर कर सकते हैं. So it helped me in doing my dual specialization. Finance was one and marketing was second. which again brought in an edge. You know, when the placement committee or the placement started happening, I joined Satyam. They came for interview, and Satyam at that point of time, Satyam Computers was the top 4.
Yeah.
Was on a Hyderabad ka raja जिसको बोल सकते हैं.
Correct.
You know? And interview, cracking that interview hardly took 10 minutes. In fact, I was asking more questions to the interviewer than the interviewer asking questions to me. And that way it also helped me in terms of my salary negotiation. You know, because if you are good in numbers and if you tilt the entire conversation towards yourself rather than someone asking you more questions, I think you are already in the game. You already won that game. So entire career of my Satyam journey for 2 years, from the highs till the mayhem struck, till the time Mahindras came in, that gave me a good learning exposure. You know, because in Satyam, I was into the corporate strategy team, and for that there is a research and analysis division within corporate strategy. So I was one of the new management trainees who was brought into the system. With that knack of finance, whatever work was done in a month, towards the end of my tenure, that work got completed in a week or 5 days. I used to ask my bosses, just give me more work. I'm getting bored. So then they put me into the crisis management team. Early on in my career, a company is flunging. You know, what has to be done, no one knows. So you're part of the crisis management team. So how does a crisis management team comes into a play? What are the kind of challenges they have to face on a daily basis? You know, both internally as well as externally, because it was.
So you were there somewhere in 2008?
So I had joined in 2005 and 2007 and quit Satyam in 2009.
So that was the period when the entire episode happened.
So I have seen the peak. I have seen the worst, and I've seen the stabilization of the company. So this was one part. Second part is the day when
I just remember that सत्यम को उल्टा पड़ेंगे तो माइता
से आएगा,
और माइता सुन के शायद son-in-law
his son's real estate company was called Metas.
Correct.
So in fact, there's a good incident I would want to share with you and how CFA actually helped me. जब न्यूज़ ब्रेक हुआ तो हम तो बिगनर थे. We were in the S band, which is the lowest band. You know, there is S2 management trainees. We were in that band. We were worried, भाई पैसे कैसे आएंगे? My family is in Calcutta. I was staying with my friends and other schoolmates or college mates in Hyderabad. सब कुछ अपने आप चलाना है. पैसे आएंगे कैसे? That's when the CFA nerd in me jaga, and we started doing options. So I remember Satyam share falling to 10 to 12 rupees.
Yeah. I was sitting on the trading
हमने
floor.
भर के खरीदा उस समय कि इससे नीचे और क्या जाएगा. जीरो तो आज तक कभी हुआ नहीं इंडियन मार्केट में. And once the government showed a surety, the team was coming in, which meant कि अब यहाँ से the journey is only north. So that was the biggest trade of my life till then. वो options मतलब जब तक 100 rupees stock price cross नहीं किया, I kept on holding that. So the motive was the survival of the fittest. कि अगर पैसे ही नहीं रहे तो फिर अब तो वापस घर जाना पड़ेगा. And I didn't want to come back to Calcutta after all those years. So that is one knowledge or one positive which actually I saw that this is what CFA is worth of. And people started getting afraid, हाथ पाँव ठंडे हो जाते थे, तब दिमाग में क्लिक किया कि ऑप्शन भर के खरीदो कॉल ऑप्शन और उसको पकड़ के रहो. And that actually gave me fuel for another 1 year to survive. कि अगर जॉब नहीं भी रहा, कंपनी बंद भी हो गई, so I can survive on my own. So that was the first step, you know, which actually was again one of the turning points, which helped me. How do you survive, you know, when things are all against you, all odds? You need to still get up, still do things, you know, which you are passionate about. So that was one example I thought I should share.
I think one thing in your personality, which I've always found right from the beginning, was no dearth of energy. Energy levels are always high. It's always like you are never like इतना सारा काम है कैसे हो पाएगा. It's always like और काम दे दो. ठीक है, you can do more, you can do more. I think अभी your present what are you doing, what is your present stature, ठीक है, क्या responsibilities है, how do you envision the automobile sector? Okay, let's discuss that part.
Yeah.
What is all about FADA? Because student community जो सुन रहे होंगे ना, उनको usually FADA के बारे में पता नहीं है कि what is this FADA, a dealers association, and you the CEO of FADA. Okay, so how does it happen to be, and what does this FADA do?
So I'll just give you a brief background before jumping into what FADA is. We call it FADA that way. See, I joined corporate strategy at Satyam. Then after 2 years, when Mahindras came in, things were stabilizing. But I was looking out for a better opportunity. Briefly, I joined GSW Group, where we were working on mergers and acquisition, and that was the mandate. And I was working in that team. So it was cement, infra, aluminum, and paints. So I got exposure apart from IT to into these different industries, just for a brief time. But obviously, what are the basics of these industries? I came to know that. Plus, obviously, जब MS Finance किए थे, तो mergers and acquisition दिमाग में fit था.
पेपर था लैम्डा में,
है ना, लैम्डा में पेपर था. So that started coming into use. Again, this was a second application. कि जब हम पढ़ते हैं और वो चीज़ यूज आती है कि नहीं आती है, दिस वाज अगेन अ सेकंड एग्जांपल ऑफ दैट. आफ्टर दैट वी that entire structure was a manufacturing setup which actually didn't gel with me too much. It was, a very slow kind of industry compared to IT industry at that point of time. So I moved out. We started doing consulting with few like-minded people. Most of them in their early 50s. I was in my early 30s at that time.
So own consultancy firm.
Yes. We were few partners. We did few consulting assignments. The aim was to become one of the IT companies of the world, do an acquisition in US. But God had other plans, But for me, it was a learning in disguise. The thing which was coming to me from family, from other sides, that why do you want to risk at such an early age when you can get jobs into any other domain? I said, अगर अभी नहीं किया तो experience कैसे होगा? And बाद में regret नहीं होना चाहिए. I don't want to regret anything in my life. जो कर लिया अगर मन में आ गया तो करना ही है वो. कल को कोई ये नहीं बोले मैं अपने आप को नहीं बोलूँ कि काश अगर वो कर लिए होते तो क्या हो सकता था. बट ओके, दैट डिडंट वर्क आउट. दैट इज पार्ट एंड पार्सल ऑफ लाइफ. I got a good consulting assignment from Indian Broadcasting Foundation, which is the Broadcasters Association in Delhi. Shifted my base with my family. That was my first exposure into how associations work. हम कंपनीज में क्या करते हैं, कंपनीज में यू आर वर्किंग ओनली फॉर अ पर्टिकुलर कंपनी, बट व्हाट एसोसिएशंस गिव्स यू इज इट गिव्स यू एन एंटायर नॉलेज अबाउट दैट इंडस्ट्री. व्हाट आर द प्लसेस एंड माइनसेस ऑफ द इंडस्ट्री. What is that common minimum program which everyone will agree to, because everyone has their own agenda. So how do you manage people? People to people interaction gets polished in the best possible manner, which may not even get polished if you're working in a corporate structure. That work continues.
सबका अपना अपना vested interest है.
Yes.
उसको manage करना.
उसको manage करना. At the same time, everyone is happy because you are into the system. अगर सब happy होते हैं तभी आपका recruitment होता है. So that was not the case. The case was, how do you understand? How do you do policy related work? How do you align all the competitors, bring them on the table, and bring out a positive outcome, which will drive the industry north. So that was my first learning, because I was heading the research team there. So there were a lot of things which we were doing. For example, the television TRP rating जो होता है, which is the bread and butter of any broadcasting. So we set up the new TRP mechanism for the Indian broadcasting industry. Again, a new industry learnings came to me. How does the TRP work? What are the back-end works you need to do, to register an accurate TRP? So those things came handy. My switch after 2 years was to the digital cable operators, the likes of City Cable, Hathways and Dens. They were huge that time, at that point of time. And India was going through digitization. So cable cutting was happening and set-top boxes were getting placed. So my mandate was to create an association, again bring all the competitors on the table and smoothly roll out the digitization process so that the industry could flourish. I stayed there for 2 years. Again, a lot of learning came in. The entire mandate got okayed, successfully implemented. And towards the end of the tenure, both Hathway and Den got acquired by Jio because of the kind of digitization work which had happened and the broadcast and the broadband industry which came up apart from the cable industry by these MSOs. And in 2017 November, I got an opportunity from FADA, the Auto Dealers Association. At that point of time, I was 34. So, taking the role of CEO at the age of 34, I think there was a lot of pressure on me to prove my mettle again. Because you need that one home run or one sixer, which actually makes you the favorite of your industry folks. They start believing in you, half of the battle, believe me, that's already won. So that's when I joined FADA, and it's a 64 years old organization, and at that time I was 34 years of age. So to prove my mettle again was a challenge because there were a lot of gray hairs in the system, and it takes time to make them happy, to convince them, if I have to put it that way. So I was looking for my sixer. What was that? So that sixer moment came exactly a year later, when after a year of work, I could understand that in India there is no concept of retail auto numbers. On first, every auto company releases their numbers, and they are all wholesale dispatches, which is dispatch from the factory gates to the dealers. बट अल्टीमेटली ग्राउंड पे कितना बिका है वो किसी को नहीं पता, इन्वेंट्री का स्टेटस क्या है वो किसी को नहीं पता, इतनी डिस्काउंटिंग अगर हो रही है कोई टाइम में तो क्यों हो रही है वो किसी को नहीं पता. So all that thing, I studied the market, international markets, where there was no concept of wholesale. It was only retail.
All retail.
Yes. So when we started releasing retail numbers, this was November 2018, immediately after Diwali, when OEMs were announcing that there is a growth of 10-12%. But at the retail level, we were seeing a degrowth of 7-8%, which means a total delta of 17 odd percent. And this was a big number. And that's when we decided it's enough now, we'll start releasing the retail numbers on our own. There were a few backlashes, obviously, once something new comes into the system.
Yeah, because it will have a stock price impact.
Yes. So those things happen. And at that point of time, so India, if I give you a brief, India has some 1420 RTOs, regional transport offices, where vehicles get registered. So I had to collate data from all these 1400 RTOs across India, from north to south, east to west. And that time my coverage was 58% when I started doing this. Today, after 7 odd years, my coverage has reached 96%. And by God's grace, in another 1.5 months, I'll hit the target of 100%. Because only the state of Telangana is left. And they also now started testing online registrations, which we can track. So now what happened is suddenly everything started revolving around retail. What is the inventory level at dealers' end? What is the kind of discounting happening in the market? What is the feedback of dealers from the ground, where we are in touch with, whom we are in touch with on a day-to-day basis? That all data started coming to me. So जब हम research से compare करते हैं, this is the primary form of research, right? And this is the data source which then analysts start tracking. So I was at the fulcrum, or I was at the forefront of manufacturing that data, with the help of Government of India. So I had to be very sensitive in terms of keeping an arm's length distance from all the different aspects. The data security and the sensitivity of the data cannot go haywire, because it will impact multiple things, which may have again a rippling effect.
The data must also be used by government agencies, I suppose.
Yes, so in fact, it is used by RBI on a daily basis, Chief Economic Advisor, all the ministries which track auto, plus obviously anyone who has interest in auto within India or globally, all the brokerage houses, hedge funds, pension funds, they all track auto. So they need this data. So again, it became a subscription model for me to start making revenue from this, because associations generally survive on basis of subscription fees from their members. But FADA, we know we don't have any concept of it's only a lifetime fees. So you pay a penny amount once in your lifetime until the time your dealership is alive. You don't need to pay anything else. So which meant I had to corporatize the entire way the association was running. I had to start looking at new revenue fronts. So Vahan was the retail numbers was that sixer for me, which started opening the doors. Where I could start making money for the association, ultimately making money for myself in the long run. We started doing a lot of surveys, doing a health check of how the dealer OEM relationship is on an annual basis, and then started subscribing these reports to OEMs that this is a health check which you need to understand, because ultimately your first customers are your dealers, not the end customers. And if your relationship with your dealer is good, ultimately your brands will survive, your products will do good in the market.
It's a perfect case of B2B2C.
Yes. So these were different aspects or different avenues, which started giving me much more revenue and started building that detailed trust in my members that FADA is not like any other association which is only surviving on members funds. कि कोई भी इशू आया, हम मेंबर के पास पहुंच गए कि प्लीज कॉर्पस रेज करिए, हमें ये करना है. So our entire aim, I think FADA is the only association in the entire world where there is no concept of annual subscription fees, because we don't want to burden our members. So these are the different ways, which I could gain trust on. And again, trust was not only coming from my members, which was not only internal stakeholders, but the external stakeholders like the analyst world, the government, and not only the central but the state governments also, plus international associations, like-minded associations. That's where our reputation also started growing. That these are the things what is happening in India. We started doing a lot of skilling work. Because अभी जैसे आप देखेंगे, there's a lot of transition happening from mechanical automobiles to electric vehicles, which means there's a declining case of mechanical engineers, and then there's an inclining case of tech engineers. And again, because of this change, there's a lot of flux in the industry, a lot of manpower which needs to be retrained. Newer skills needs to be brought into the system. We're doing a lot of skilling at the ground level, also at the dealership level. So what are the new techs available in the mature markets? How can we imbibe them in the Indian market? So all these things are taking place, and the latest being, we have never had any discussion with government earlier at the FADA level on any FTAs. And India, as you know, is doing multiple FTAs, and more FTAs are in the pipeline to happen. If you see this Europe FTA, EU FTA was started in 2008. It got concluded now. I'm very happy to share that from automobile perspective, Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal ji had called us for a meeting, and he said that why don't you suggest what the FTA should do for the auto sector. And we worked really hard on it, and happy to say whatever came out in the final structure of the FTA is exactly what we had suggested to him. So which again shows that if you have that knack of research, you can do wonders in any field you go. And this field is something, it's a very different field. People in this field generally come at the age of 50s, 60s when they are towards their retirement. I had chosen this path because it was a blue ocean for me. There was no competition at my age. At the age of 34, no one becomes a CEO or a director general of any association. Generally come up at the age of 45, 50s or plus. So again, it was a head start for me, because from 34, even if you see the retirement age generally in the Indian context is 60. So that gives me a long journey, which, and in this entire long journey, you can do wonderful things, not only for the company, but for the entire sector as a whole. So, and all this, if you see, from the sharp research back at the back of my mind, it helps me on a daily basis to do good, not only for yourself but for the community and for the entire industry as such. If you see, auto is not one industry, as you call it, it's the mother of industries.
Everything is connected.
Steel, cement, steel, aluminium, rubber, paint, plastics, precious metals, you name it, and they have an impact on auto. So if auto grows, it's like a barometer of India's economy. A two-wheeler or the tractor shows how the rural market is performing. Cars show, the growth in cars show how the urban market is performing. If the commercial vehicles are doing good, it shows that infrastructure spending is on a good journey. So all this culminates into one automobile sector. So someone who was fascinated with cars from the era of Ambassador Mark IV to Maruti 800 to then at the driver's seat of running an association. I think it's all God's grace which has happened.
Wonderful. When this India-EU deal was happening, FTA, then we were getting all those, social media posts that now Mercedes would be available at this price, that price. Okay,
it was hilarious.
Can you just demystify that part?
So the Instagram universities of the world, and their branches in India, were going gung-ho that the Mercedes, BMWs and Audis will become mass market, Maruti kind of products. Well, let me bust this myth. That's not going to happen. Because see, I'll tell you the numbers, because our audience will understand numbers, it will excite them. India sells 50,000 luxury vehicles every year, and of that 95% of the vehicles are either manufactured here or are brought into the country in the CKD format. Now CKD is completely knockdown units, which means you bring vehicles in parts and then you assemble it
over
in India. So FTA will not impact this 95% of the market, which means you are left with 2,500-3,000 vehicles which are coming directly as an import. And these vehicles are the likes of Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Bugattis, or the G-Wagons of the world, which are not manufactured here but are imported. And on that, the duty is 110%. And government has said that the duty will be reduced to 40%. But it is not simple math that if duty was 110%, which means you divide the price by 110 and multiply it by 40, and that is your ex-showroom price in India. That is not the case. We need to understand real world business is not plain or Chinese maths, I would call it that way, because India is a very competitive market. For example, a G-Wagon in India, which costs around say 4.5 crore, if by this math, it would be coming in the Indian market, it would be costing not less than 6.5 crore rupees. So therefore, the first funda of math gets failed here. So on the other side, if you see the euro to INR exchange rate, INR has depreciated by say around 19 or 20%, whatever that number is right now. So you need to take that impact also into consideration, which means net from one side, if your tariffs are coming down, that pressure is being pushed from north to south. From the currency side, it is being pushed from south to north, right? So where is that middle path? You need to find that. And again, as I said, the margins in India are very thin. We globally, the dealers have the thinnest margin in the entire world. We sell vehicles in between 3 to 4.5% margin. That's what a dealer's top line is. So that is the thing. Therefore, which means that vehicle prices will not come down substantially. But what it will do is there are a lot of vehicles, exotic products, which are still not available in our country, right? Because of the high tariffs. So all these European auto manufacturers, now will have a window in India where they can test these products at a reduced duty and then see whether it has a feasibility or not, whether there are enough buyers in the Indian market or not. So we'll definitely see more vehicles, different vehicles, variety coming into the Indian market. This is what will happen from this EU FTA. And what I understand, this FTA should be in place or should be getting implemented by maybe end of this calendar year or maybe first quarter of next calendar year. So net, the Instagram universities which are saying that Mercedes and BMWs will become mass market products is definitely not going to happen.
Okay. In your interaction with the analyst community, say the automobile sector analysts, how do you think you would compare your knowledge in the auto sector with an analyst who has been working in the auto sector, say, for 15 years? How would you put it?
No, so
genuinely.
Yeah, so genuinely someone who is in the industry for 15 years, they definitely know a lot, but the ground reality is something where I will always have an edge in. The pulse of the market, what are the customers saying, what is the feedback which they are giving to the dealers. This is something which the analyst will never know if they go down the ordinary route, if you can sense what I'm trying to say. But this is something which that real feedback comes to me directly from my members, and that is an edge which I will always have.
Correct.
Come what may. So therefore, from that perspective, what is a successful product in the market, what is not a successful product in the market, what are the customers saying, what are the kind of discounts running in the showrooms. These are those levers which someone needs to track. For example, if someone is interested in auto, they need to closely track the inventory buildup at the dealership level. Because we at FADA suggest that ideal inventory days should be 21 days.
21 days. Okay.
If something is till 30 days, it is okay. But if you are going above 30 days, which means my churn is not happening as a dealer. Because if I give you a sense, most of the inventory funding at the dealership is being done by banks, and the trans period is generally 60 to 75 odd days. Anything which goes beyond this, which means that you are paying higher interest, and if you're paying higher interest, which means you're making less money.
Yeah, therefore the margins are low.
Yeah, so the simple matrix is anything going beyond 30-35 days starts bringing the alarm bells. Therefore, this is one matrix one should track. For example, last year festivals high, the number of inventory days was 80-85. This year, after Diwali or month of Jan, the inventories came down to 32-33 days.
Okay.
So that's the kind of rationale which we had tried to build over a period of time, that OEMs need to push lesser inventory because it is not only good for the dealers, but it is good for themselves also. Because ultimately, if inventory is high, your discounting goes through the roof. If you see over the years, last 1.5 years, discounts are only decreasing in a rational manner. Seasonal discounts obviously are high because that's the biggest period when automobiles get sold. But right now, if you see, there are big established OEMs which are in 10 to 15 days of inventory, which means technically I may not have every product to even sell. So if I don't have product to sell, I will definitely not give any discount to you. Automatically, the entire math suddenly starts looking rosier compared to if you have a higher inventory. So this is one metric, important metric which one should track. Second is what is the kind of discounting happening. If discounting is in control, which means automatically it is good because the inventory days are less. If discounting is going through the roof, which means neither the dealer is making money and also it is having an impact on the OEM's P&L, and therefore the rippling effect if the companies are listed also. So these are two important, very simple metrics. If someone wants to track auto or someone wants to get into auto, start reading these indicators, and then since we release a detailed 15 to 20 pager press release every month, It's not only has numbers, but it has an entirely detailed commentary also.
That's a public document.
It's a public document. We release it every by 5th or 6th of the month. We release it, the data. So it's available on our website. We circulate it. In fact, whichever analyst is in touch with us, we also send them through our mailing system. So how is the rural market doing versus how is the urban market doing? That gives a sense of which products will sell more. For example, if rural is doing good, which means your two-wheelers, entry-level cars will be selling more. If your urban market is doing good, which means the two-wheeler scooters will be doing good. In rural side, it is a two-wheeler motorcycle. The urban is more of the gearless scooters, the Activas of the world. If your commercial vehicles are doing good, which means your infra spending is happening, which then an analyst can also identify what are the other infra companies in that space, which may also get a benefit rub-off effect from this. So I think these are the broad contours which anyone who's interested in auto needs to look into. Plus, as I said, auto is the mother of all industries. This is the sense which I always give to anyone who wants to understand. It will give you how the metal prices are moving, therefore how the margins will get impacted on the auto sector. How is the rubber industry doing, because tires always has a role in auto. How the lubricant, the oil companies doing, all the paint companies doing. So all these, give a sense of how automobile is performing. Because you have pulls and push triggers from both the side, from the customer side and also from the raw material side. Plus now you have this international tariff, precious metals which come from specific Ukrainian surrounding, So the kind of electronics which are getting into your automobiles, silvers and other precious metals are getting consumed on a much higher level. So you need to have an understanding of all these things, and then only you can understand how is that auto company working out. If you don't have these understanding of these surroundings, then you may not be doing justice to if you're tracking auto as an industry. So that's the long and short of what automobile industry is.
There are 2 or 3 connected questions. I'll exhaust all 3 of them, and then you can take them based upon what view you have. One is that over the long period of say 25-30 years in the auto industry, where Maruti had a share of maybe more than 50%, at a time, maybe 75%, I don't remember. And then the market share of Maruti went down because it was always focused on price and mileage, in raw language.
कितना देती है?
Yeah, कितना देती है, ठीक है? And then infrastructure improvement took place, and per capita income went up, skewed distribution of income, because of which that happened. Plus now that we are going through this phase wherein we are transiting towards EV, what happened to Tata Motors in COVID, how it benefited from the same. And, and then the China factor also comes in, that China is so efficient, EV of China cannot be competed by anybody else. So when you sit with policymakers, as in Piyush Goyal ji was so sharp, so how do you think India and Indian economy is looking at the auto space? EV ka composition versus non-EV ka composition, the battery infrastructure of EV, what is it on the ground, and how is it emerging, evolving, a number of aspects like this.
So see, we'll have to dig deep. How was the Indian economy in the late 70s or the early 80s when Maruti came in? Because at that time, it was only Hindustan Motors or PAL, Premier, Padmini, Fiat, which were running on the Indian roads. So from a closed economy to government understanding this and partnering equally with Suzuki of Japan, they brought Maruti Suzuki in the country. And that is what I think started changing the face of automobile in the country, because customers thought that yes, this is that vehicle which is meant for me, for that Aam Aadmi, because ambassadors were a Netaji Gadi, a Raja Gadi, if I have to put it that way. And Maruti 800 was the car of the masses.
Correct.
That's when that interest or that aspiration started coming in the Indian mentality, that yes, I also need to buy a car, I need to buy my Maruti. So from that age when Maruti had a lion's share to now sub 40% market share. India is becoming a very mature market. You have many players coming into the system, but then India is still unique because Maruti has say 38 to 42% in that range, their market share. But the second highest market share is a tussle between Hyundai, Tata Motors and Mahindra, which is in between 16 to 17%. So you see the delta. The delta is too huge right now, which means we have a lot of room left in the Indian auto sector, in the Indian economy, which will squeeze this gap, because a healthy competition is only when you have decimal point differences between the top 3 or top 4 players. Right now that delta is too high. You asked about the EV infrastructure and the kind of EV market share. So see, EV is still evolving. It is in a very nascent stage. We have, of all the cars what we sell, 4 million odd vehicles we sell every year. EV's market share is mere 3.5-4%, and Indian vehicles are categorized into different categories. So two-wheeler has say around 5% market share. Cars has around 3.5% market share. What no one anticipated, the auto rickshaws, three-wheelers, has a market share of 65%.
Okay.
And no one could imagine this. Even the best of the best thought gurus of the world, the Planning Commission, Niti Aayog, no one in their any report has ever mentioned that the biggest growth will come in the three-wheeler segment. But this is the reality which we have to live with, and no one could anticipate it. So overall, there's a lot of range anxiety in people's mind that 300 किलोमीटर कैसे चलेगी, तो मैं हाईवे पे कैसे ले जाऊंगा, मैं जाऊंगा तो चार्जर है वहाँ पे, बट वो चार्जर काम कर रहा है कि नहीं कर रहा है, is again a question. It will always block my mind. So EVs right now generally is a city vehicle. People still are shying away from taking it outside. But if you want to take it out, you need to do a lot of planning. But जब हम एंटरटेनमेंट या वेकेशन पे जाते हैं, वी डोंट वांट टू प्लान इट इन सच अ रिगरस मैनर कि आधा टाइम मैं वही सोचता रहूं, है ना. सो थिंग्स विल इवॉल्व टिल द टाइम वी हैव अ व्हीकल व्हिच कम्स एंड गिव्स यू 500-600 kilometers of mileage. I don't think till that time there will be a lot of confidence. But things are improving from the era when in 2020 Tata launched it, 2021 Tata launched it Nexon. From that time, or even before that, Mahindra had e-Verito. So those products used to give a range of 80-150 kilometers to now getting a range of 400-450 kilometers. That's the journey what we have already achieved. And maybe it's only a thing of the time when we'll start seeing vehicles which are having maybe 600-700 kilometer range. And that's when that hockey stick curve will, from economics, I can remember, that hockey stick curve movement will happen, and that's when it will, have a big market share. So that's the thing on the EV front. What was the other question you had asked?
It more or less answers everything. Now recently, when I think Bajaj Finance came out with their numbers, quarterly numbers, then I think the MD, he spoke about the fact that how they are harnessing the power of AI for the purpose of increasing their business, the call records which are happening, and they are getting transcribed, and based on that, further business is escalating. That was wonderful to read when I read the same. And prior to that, when you said now that the ground realities we know, because we are in touch with the dealers, the ground reality is also visible on social media when a new product is launched, and the sentiments which are tracked by them. Since you are in the profession, you must be knowing that a lot of natural language processing is going on.
Correct.
Okay, to track. It happened in the case of Force Motors, I think. Okay, there one particular car, Mazda or whatever, that became, I may be wrong, became very famous, and that had an impact on the stock. So are you tracking the AI, and what's your view? What is going on?
So I think learning has not gone out of me. The latest course which I did last year was the course of AI Generalist. It was a 8 months course. I was so fascinated about AI and the kind of things it can do, and if I have to implement it within my organization, and maybe start replicating and advising dealers that this is what you should do. To do that, I first need to understand what AI can do for myself. If I myself don't understand, then I may not be in a commanding position to tell my members that this is what you need to do to up your game. Because AI is all about 100x, 1000x kind of efficiency, which will be brought in onto the system. So I did this program, and now the difference what I am seeing in myself, I'm able to do at least 40 to 50x more work in the same time zone, time period which everyone has. Also, I recently visited US, where we have the NADA show. NADA is the equivalent of FADA in the US, and they are the oldest auto dealers association, around 112 years old. And there everything was only about AI. So the kind of call centers which are coming up, where there are no humans, it is only the agents which are on the call, and they are available 24/7. If you have a service issue, if you want to book a service, if you want finance of your vehicle, insurance of your vehicle to be renewed, the call centers will do the calling. You'll call, and the call center agents, AI agents, will be taking your call and doing all the work for you.
Correct.
That is the thing which has happened, because call centers in India are not less than 100-150 seaters, and every dealership generally has a CRM team or the call center team, which is 20 to 50, 100 depending on the size of their dealership. With this, I think if a team is of 100 call center employees, it may reduce to 10. That is the kind of impact AI has. And it will not only reduce your cost, but on one side it will reduce your cost, on the other side it will improve your efficiencies to another level which you can't even think of. It will start giving you different aspects which you may not be able to also find from the analytics team. That is one. Second, AI is getting deep rooted in terms of predicting the demand what your vehicles will have. Because today, if a company launches one model, it is not one model, it is one nameplate. But then if it has 3 different engines, and every engine has 7 variants, and every variant has 7 colors, just think about the permutation combination, the SKUs which every product comes with. So which product, which variant, which color you need to pick and keep in your stock. You need to think and decide in a very accurate manner.
And that's coming on a real-time basis.
And it is coming on a real-time basis from the prediction of what historically has been sold in your market. What are the highs and lows of your market? What is the festive period? What is the lean period? What are the color choices available? What kind of disposable income your community has where you're selling the vehicle. So which vehicle or which variant will suit them the most, or which vehicle they will demand the most. So it will help in terms of predicting the demand. And also keeping the stocks at your dealership, because every vehicle which you purchase from the OEM, it is a B2B transaction. It cannot go back to the OEM, and there's a channel funding which you are using to procure that vehicle. So you have to be very sensitive in terms of how do you predict demand, how do you keep the inventory, not only of the cars, but of the 2000 spare parts which are used in that car at the workshop. Because if a workshop has, say, 10,000 odd dead inventory, and that vehicle is off the shelf and no one is now buying it, what do you do with that inventory? That inventory, which means you are that working capital is stuck. It is a bad debt for you. So AI is helping in all these things. Coming to pre-owned vehicles, in US the pre-owned vehicle market is even bigger. In fact, in India it is also 1.7 times the new car sales. So if me as a customer, I call a pre-owned company, I give my preference. This is my budget. This is the kind of car, sedan or SUV or hatch I need to buy. Or this is the minimum age. It should not go beyond this. The vehicle should not be older than this age. So if I give these broad criteria, AI will throw me all the suggestions. And I have done a real testing in my trip, where I said, okay, now can you compare it with another vehicle, which I think is much better, but you tell me why it is not better, or why is it better. So it will give you that analytics also, real-time basis, which a human can never do. Because if a call center guy is sitting, he always has a transcript in front of him. And if you throw an off-syllabus question to him, he'll say, I'll get back to you, which means that customer is lost. It's a hot deal which you are converting into a lukewarm deal or a cold deal now. So AI is helping you on these fronts, and obviously on what the customer sentiment is, what are the customers talking about on the social media front. That entire analytics is a different ball game altogether now, which helps all the marketing team understand which are the pain points of the customer, or which are the hit products in the market. What are those features which a customer is looking out for? Well, it's a different case that India is a feature rich market. We are customers, we want everything. We may not be using 99% of those things, but we still want कि होना चाहिए, कभी मन कर जाए तो मैं use करूँगा. So that's how AI is helping. It is not only now restricted to the chat GPTs or the Groks of the world, which are very basics of, I won't even call them AI. It's like a basic Grammarly. If I have to talk, if I have to write in a letter, I would be using Grammarly in the earlier era. This is what ChatGPT is doing right now. But in terms of research work, in terms of cutting down time, giving you accurate answers. Earlier, the case of hallucination was also there in AI, but now there are different means and techniques where you can restrict that hallucination. If you bring an AI agent down on your local server, it will only look into whatever is available on your server or whatever resources you are giving it to them. Yeah. So these are the different ways, and I think with the kind of era where we are in, these new techs cycle is reducing every year. Means once upon a time, Doordarshan came in 1980s. Broadband TCP/IP connection say came in some 2004, 2005. So the era of change, or the mobile phones came in 99, 2000. The destructions happened over a period of 10 years or a decade. The destruction cycle is reducing now. मतलब आज तो ऐसा है कि कल AI एक कंपनी ने कुछ निकाला, आज किसी और ने कुछ निकाला. For me also to keep a track of what is going on, to keep on updating on a daily basis is becoming a big challenge.
Correct.
So now I see after every month what is new, that's only, and what are the big landmarks, what is creating more buzz, that is the product which is worth looking into. So the era of AI and the timelines which are getting shorter day by day, it is helping us what we couldn't do 20 years or 10 15 years earlier. We can do all those things now. For example, in research, if you need to collect data, if you need to read transcripts of the meetings, analyst calls, all these things can happen like this. Something which would take days and lot of manpower, the days has come down now to minutes, and manpower is reduced to not even one. If you have an AI agent for that, you technically don't need even an analyst to do that work. So the role of an analyst will be basically now much more human. How do you interact face-to-face communication with your peers or with in the industry what you are working on. So your interpersonal relationships is what will an analyst need in times of AI now, which will help them bring or build an edge over any others who are not using that. So I always I have this comment, AI will not end my job, but someone who knows AI may end my job.
May take over my job.
So learning AI is now a very basic need. No one can be untouched of this. And if someone is still thinking that हम सुरक्षित है, हमारा AI कुछ बाल भी बाका नहीं कर पाएगा, तो look at that Galgotia University professor which lost her job only because of AI. It may be in a fun way, but then AI is behind everyone's job. No one is secure. You have to have good relationship with AI to stay connected, to stay alive in this world.
Speaking of interpersonal relation, we were just recollecting, two incidents from the past tuitions, So, and I was so surprised that the student about which we are talking, a friend of yours, is still a friend of yours.
Yeah.
Because you must have tortured his life in the classes like anything. So it was Atul, and he used to sit in the first bench, and you all were all in the last benches. And since he was extra sincere in terms of, no, he has to make a career, as if others don't have to make a career. So you all were all the way pulling his leg. So once one of you asked him, यार तुम इस तरह का क्यों है, मैंने तुम इस तरह क्यों करते हैं, तो he said, सबका अपना अपना होता है. So everybody is saying, of course.
So he was a partial chatur of our era.
Correct.
Yeah, but he's a good guy. See, everyone has a different way of, taking our life. He was very serious, very studious. We were studious, but we were having fun also.
Yeah.
At that time.
In fact, you'll remember there were two classrooms. So in one classroom, I was teaching CA classes, and my elder brother Prakash sir, he was teaching CFA classes at that time, and then we used to switch roles.
Yes.
So you guys who were doing CFA, when you were looking at the CA guys are all into the books, and you all used to laugh, you look pagal hai kya, is tarah pad rahe hai? And when the CA guys were leaving and watching you all, you look pad rahe bhi hai kya? That just goes to show two personalities about the fact that success in life at the end of the day does not totally bent upon how serious you become into studies. Very damn serious in life, damn serious in studies. I think balance is achieved when you know that yes, studies or academics are just a part of life. They need to be given importance. We need to extract the same and apply it, and plus balance our interpersonal skills and enjoy life to the fullest extent. I've seen it happening with you. What would you like to say about it?
See, excitement is important, enjoying life is important, and also studying is important. I think CA is a much tougher course. There's no doubt about it. So anyone who was doing MS Finance at that point of time, including me, we took a shortcut to success. But then success was only meant for them, people who got the degree. That degree, either it is a CA, it is a CFA, MS Finance, or whatever degree it is, it will make you reach the doors, at the same point, After reaching the door, opening the door, the walk which someone has to do will make someone either a successful person in life or a person who is mediocre in life. So that walk has to be done by everyone who needs to become successful. Someone who has done CA, a very rigorous course, and is still only limiting himself to doing the audit work, which generally, that's how generally most of the CAs, start their working career with. But then you have to keep on upgrading yourself. You have to keep demanding for more. You have to broaden your vision. For example, in my case, I started with IT industry strategy, to getting into M&A, to then getting into entertainment.
People are not comfortable in switching. I've seen
entertainment and cable TV industry, to then again broadening to auto industry. If you don't keep challenging yourself, and if you become if your life becomes standstill like water, the water has to continuously flow. For example, there's this quote keeps on going in Instagrams also, even the heart line keeps on moving. It is still, which means you are dead. So you don't need to keep that line horizontal.
On that note, in fact, a number of chartered accountants who are stuck in the audit domain or accounts domain for the last 10, 12, 15 years, who had studied with us, have now been reaching out to us, and asking that I really see that there is a lot happening in the capital markets, which is interesting, which is growth oriented, which is more rewarding, and do I shift right now from the accounts or audit domain to the capital markets domain? And itna dar. So the point is that अगर आपको अच्छा लगता है वो और आपको दिख रहा है उस सेक्टर में, इस एरिया में ग्रोथ है, why do you doubt yourself that you won't be able to do it? In fact, CAs are the ones who are sitting with all the acumen of analyzing financial statements. They are the ones who would be able to pick it up faster. Just that confidence has to be there.
Yeah. So I think sorry, what I was saying, I forgot. Um,
Do you recollect any friend of yours at the time when you were studying who was doing CA?
So generally in India, we were seeing, sorry, in Calcutta that ways, we were seeing most of the friend circle into MS Finance. But a lot of my relatives, cousins who are based in Rajasthan, or in Delhi, they were doing CAs, and their life, I've seen their lives personally, and they were all glued up into studies. Many of them have done really well into their careers, but then they had that hunger, to grow, keep growing in the curriculum, what in the profession what they are, and that is what made them successful.
Yeah.
I've seen, on the other hand, I've seen many people who were doing the basic kind of work, and they got comfortable in that role.
Yeah.
Which is what killed the entire aspiration.
Correct.
And if someone right now, now I remember, if someone right now is getting too much excited after seeing the stock market performance and all, they should not do or come into finance world. This is one of phenomena. You need to build that hunger within yourself to change track. Only by getting excited that market में तो आज 100 का चीज 1000 हो गया, that is giving me that kick to come into this world. That's the wrong thought process of coming into or switching your jobs from an audit work to an analyst work. You have to build that excitement within you. You need to love that industry, to know nitty-gritties of that industry.
Acquire the skills.
Acquire the skill and know each and everything. It should be at the back of your hand. You should be knowing much better than the owner or that promoter of the company. Analyzing the dots, connecting it, and then giving a feedback in terms of a buy or sell report, which ultimately generally is the finished product. So you have to have that hunger. You need to love your work. You need to be really passionate about what you want to do. If you're not passionate and just are going changing direction from one side to other side by seeing कि भाई वो तो कर रहा है, मेरे को मैं क्यों नहीं कर सकता हूँ, वो तो कमा रहा है, मैं क्यों नहीं कमा सकता हूँ, that will not help you. That will only demoralize you going forward if you even join that industry or that work. So you need to build that passion within yourself. That fire has to come from inside. That I need to do this. And decisions are never easy. Humans are always comfortable remaining in the same way. Change is always discomforting. So you have to take that first step to move forward.
Point is that I have seen a typical statement coming from some people, say class 10 तक 12 तक अच्छा नहीं पढ़े because of whatever reason, orientation नहीं आया. They would tend to use the statement, sir हम average student है. I think this line is very, very unfortunate. There is nothing called average. As soon as you get the focus and passion into something, you can just reach the skies. तो एक तो हम average student है. Second, one good thing which is happening right now as compared to the days when you did your MS Finance, if you would recall, people who tend to get into CFA at that time were those guys who were a little better off per capita income wise.
Yeah.
Generally. Okay, but the crowd was divided. Usually MS Finance or CFA mein, there used to be people from a little bit well-off families as compared to otherwise. This has totally changed. Nowadays what's happening is that those who are not so well off, they have understood the importance and started doing CFA, and they know the importance of the money they are putting, and we have to pay in dollar terms. While the others who are more privileged, who have everything of the world, they are the ones who are not getting the passion of doing it because they have it on their plate. So it's really...
So I think again, using the fundas of finance, the skill in the game is making all the difference. That time CA was always, if I put it, always a less expensive course. CFA always, every quarter you had to give exams, you had to pay the fees, plus the entire CFA program, MS Finance program also had a big fees compared to CA. So therefore, obviously that divide was there. But now, because you need to pay in dollars, you have a big skin in the game, and you better do well, because if you want to succeed in life, your first ROI will count from here.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't do well, if you don't prove yourself enough, even after investing so much in dollar terms, then I don't think you will be able to crack the hard world which is waiting out for you.
Correct.
It is a notorious world. It is a very unforgiving world, and you have to strike a balance. You have to fight your battle in the right way, with all the integrity, with all the passion which you have within yourself, and then only I think someone will succeed in this life.
Correct. So it was wonderful talking with you, and when you were replying, then there were so many aspects which I wanted to pick up and discuss further, but I did not stop your flow, and this talk could have just gone and gone. Okay, so होता है ना, second innings वापस आएगी perhaps. Okay, and I just forgot to ask you, what is your vision in future? Where do you see yourself 10 years down the road, in case you think about it?
In my 2 decades of work experience, I have never thought about this, and I think I will never think about this in future also. I take life a step at a time, and that is, I think, where my success or my kick comes from. If you plan too much, you know, God always has a different plan for you. The way I said that no one thought that 3-wheelers will have 65% electrification. No one in this entire world thought about this.
Correct.
You know, but then it happened. So if you think, for example, I thought about being an entrepreneur myself in the early part of my career, but that was not the plan which God had said, seen for me. So I have stopped looking at 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line thing. I take life as it comes. If I got all these opportunities on its own, there was no, by God's grace, push from my side to start hunting that I am very desperate. But I got the right opportunities. I thought this will enhance my career capability, my skill set. I took that, and then I had to work on it. Nothing came on the plate to me. So that is how life, I think, will be for me. Whatever options come in future, I think I'll analyze it, whether it goes well, gels well with my progression, and if it is in sync, then why not? I'll take up that role and take up that step. But no vision which I have from that perspective.
So all the best for a great and happy life ahead.
Thank you.
Okay, for you and your family and your entire bigger extended family of the dealers community. Okay, wonderful service you all are providing to the retail consumers. Okay, and to the analyst community. Please continue the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Always pleasure to speak to you.
Sure. Thank you.